In this brief lecture, I thought I'd give you a snapshot of what religion in the colonies looked like in the period before Samuel Seabury, leading up to the American Revolution. Many of you probably already know some of this, but I thought the reminder would be helpful. The colony in Virginia was settled first in 1607. It was settled by English who came to the New World for economic gain. Primarily settled by Anglicans, and the Church of England became the established church in Virginia from the very beginning. Of course, the second oldest colony in the Americas was the Massachusetts Bay Colony. It was established by the Puritans in 1620. They established theocracy there. The religion, we would call it congregationalism, became the established religion of the Massachusetts Bay Colony. New Hampshire was also established early in 1623. It was an expansion of the Massachusetts Bay Colony, and as you might expect, it too was Puritan in its leanings, congregational in its polity. What's interesting about New Hampshire, however, is that it very quickly became quite pluralist and one would say latitudinarian in welcoming other people into its boundaries. The fourth of the colonies, and tremendously important colony, of course, was New York, settled in 1624, settled primarily by Dutch, and therefore the settlers reflected the Dutch Reformed tradition. However, when New York was chartered in 1664, it was chartered as a colony that was beholden to the Church of England, but still made up of many Dutch Reformed from the very beginning. Maryland is the next oldest colony, settled in 1634 by the English. It became a refuge for Roman Catholics. Indeed, it is the Roman Catholic colony. Even though it's chartered as a colony of the Church of England, the majority of the people who settled in Maryland were Roman Catholics. Then in 1634, Connecticut is settled. It too is an expansion of the Massachusetts Bay Colony. Polity is Congregationalist, original leanings, Puritan, Calvinist. Of course, you think immediately of people like Jonathan Edwards and the founding of Yale College, very important in the early 18th century. However, Connecticut had a strong contingent of Anglicans, and as you know, Connecticut is where we have Samuel Seabury. Rhode Island comes next, settled in 1636. Rhode Island was founded as a refuge for radicals who were fleeing the Massachusetts Bay Colony. So people who were even more radically Protestant in their leanings than the Puritans. Rhode Island became a refuge for Baptists under Roger Williams. Eighth in the list is New Jersey. It is an expansion, of course, from New York, and so there are a lot of Dutch Reformed in New Jersey. But originally, New Jersey was founded by Swedish Lutherans, and it also became a haven for early Quakers. And interestingly, as it develops, New Jersey, like New Hampshire, becomes a very pluralist colony as well. Ninth in the list, also pluralist, is Delaware, founded or settled at least in 1638, settled by Lutherans and Dutch Reformed and Anglicans. Pluralist in its beginnings, but over the course of its history, Delaware becomes more Anglican in its leanings. Next are important southern states, North Carolina. People settled there for economic gain, first settled in 1653. Settled by Anglicans, but as you will remember, it becomes a place where Methodists made their first inroads later on in the century. Followed shortly thereafter by South Carolina, settled in 1670. For economic gain, South Carolina is chartered as a colony of the Church of England, but it too also was a place where Methodists preached and had considerable success. Of course, at this period too, settled in 1681 is Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania settled by Quakers under the leadership of William Penn, but also with Lutheran settlers and also the Mennonite Brethren and the Amish. Despite the prominence of Quakers in Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania is also really quite a pluralist colony. And then finally, the latest colony to be settled is that of Georgia, settled in 1733 by James Oglethorpe. It was a colony that was founded for those who were relieved from debtors' prison. It is a colony that is English in its orientation, chartered as a colony devoted to the Church of England, but it too was a place where early Methodist missionaries and preachers made their inroads. So that you see that there's a lot of religious diversity in the colonies. Many of them owe kind of nominal allegiance to the Church of England. The strongest of the Anglican colonies is clearly Virginia, but there are very strong Anglican ties in Maryland, in Connecticut, in South Carolina. But our focus this week is clearly going to be on Virginia and on the events in Connecticut that led to the consecration of Samuel Seabury. I hope that background helps a bit in your thinking about the issues that shaped the Episcopal Church in America at the time of the American Revolution.